The stagecoach wheels hit a rut so hard that Adelaide Jennings thought her teeth might rattle loose from her skull. And when she finally stumbled out onto the dusty main street of Columbus, New Mexico, in the scorching July heat of 1885, the first thing she saw was a cowboy being thrown headfirst through the saloon window. Glass exploded outward in a glittering cascade, and the man landed in a heap on the wooden boardwalk, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. He pushed himself up on his elbows, shook his head like a wet dog, and started laughing. That was when Adelaide knew she had made either the best or worst decision of her entire 22 years. She clutched her carpetbag tighter and stepped away from the stagecoach, her traveling dress already clinging to her back with perspiration. Columbus was smaller than she had imagined, just a collection of weathered buildings clustered along a single main thoroughfare, with the Tres Hermanas Mountains rising in the distance like sleeping giants. The town straddled the border between New Mexico Territory and Old Mexico, a place where cultures mixed and dangers multiplied. Adelaide had come here because her Aunt Martha had written that she needed help running the general store after breaking her leg. But as she watched two more men come barreling out of the saloon to continue their brawl in the street, she wondered if her aunt had understated the challenges of frontier life. The cowboy who had gone through the window was on his feet now, wiping blood from his face with the back of his hand. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that fell past his collar and eyes the color of desert sage. Even with blood on his face and his shirt torn at the shoulder, there was something magnetic about him, a vitality that seemed to crackle in the air around him like heat lightning. He glanced in Adelaide's direction, and their eyes met for just a heartbeat before one of the other men charged at him again. "Miss Jennings." A woman's voice cut through the commotion. Adelaide turned to see her Aunt Martha limping toward her with the aid of a wooden crutch, her weathered face breaking into a smile. "You made it, thank the Lord. I was starting to worry the stage had broken an axle somewhere between here and Las Cruces." Adelaide embraced her aunt carefully, mindful of the splinted leg. The journey was eventful enough without adding a broken axle to the list. "Aunt Martha, is it always like this here?" Martha followed her gaze to where the three men were now rolling in the dust, throwing punches with abandon while a small crowd gathered to watch. "Oh, that is just Saturday afternoon entertainment. The tall one who came through the window is Owen Hawthorne. He runs the horse ranch about 5 miles north of town. Good man, mostly, but he has got a temper when someone tries to cheat him at cards. Come on, let me get you inside before you melt in this heat." The general store was blessedly cooler than the street, its thick adobe walls keeping the worst of the summer sun at bay. Shelves lined every available surface, stocked with everything from flour and sugar to rope and ammunition. The smell of coffee and leather and sawdust filled the air. Martha showed Adelaide to the small room at the back where she would be staying, barely large enough for a narrow bed and a washstand, but it was hers. "I know it is not much," Martha said, settling onto a chair with a grunt of relief. "But you will earn your keep, I promise you that. This store is the lifeblood of Columbus, and I cannot manage it alone with this damned leg. Doc says I will be in this splint for another 6 weeks at least." Adelaide unpinned her hat and set it on the bed. "I am just grateful you thought of me. After Mother passed last winter, staying in Boston felt like living in a tomb. I needed to go somewhere, be useful somehow." Martha reached over and squeezed her hand. "You were always meant for bigger things than sitting in a parlor doing needlework. Your mother was my sister, and I loved her dearly, but she never understood that you had your father's spirit. He was an adventurer, your pa, would have loved the frontier." Adelaide smiled, remembering her father's stories of his travels before he had settled down to become a banker in Boston. He had died when she was 15, and his death had dimmed something in her mother, made their lives smaller and quieter. "Tell me about Columbus. Tell me about the people." Over the next hour, as the afternoon light slanted through the windows and the sounds of the town filtered in from outside, Martha painted a picture of life on the border. Columbus was a trading post, a way station for travelers heading to California or down into Mexico. The railroad had not yet reached them, so everything came by wagon or on horseback. The population was a mix of American settlers, Mexican families who had been here long before the border was drawn, and a rotating cast of cowboys, prospectors, soldiers, and drifters. "You will need to be careful," Martha warned. "This is not Boston. Women have more freedom here in some ways, but dangers too. The Apache Wars ended not long ago, but there are still raiders who cross the border, bandits who prey on travelers. And some of the men here forget their manners when they have been too long without civilized company." "I can take care of myself," Adelaide said, with more confidence than she felt. Martha laughed. "I believe you can, but keep that Derringer I sent you loaded just in case." The next morning, Adelaide woke before dawn to the sound of roosters and began her education in frontier commerce. The store opened at sunrise, and immediately there was a steady stream of customers, ranchers buying supplies for the week ahead. Mexican women bartering eggs and vegetables for flour and cloth. A grizzled prospector who smelled like he had not bathed since the previous century, counting out coins for coffee and tobacco. Adelaide worked the counter while Martha supervised from her chair, calling out prices and keeping a running tally in the ledger. Around mid-morning, the door opened and Owen Hawthorne walked in. In the clear light of day, without blood on his face, he was even more striking than Adelaide had realized. He moved with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin, his hat in his hands, his eyes scanning the store until they landed on her. A purple bruise darkened his left cheekbone, and the cut above his eye had been stitched closed with neat black thread. "Morning, Martha," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Heard you had family come to help out." "My niece, Adelaide Jennings, from Boston," Martha said. "Adelaide, this is Owen Hawthorne. He owns the Triple H Ranch north of town, raises some of the finest horses in the territory when he is not getting himself thrown through windows." Owen had the grace to look embarrassed. "About that. I apologize if I gave you a poor first impression, Miss Jennings. The man I was playing cards with had a habit of dealing from the bottom of the deck. I was just correcting his education." Adelaide studied him, trying to decide if he was sincere or simply charming. "And does your education always involve property damage, Mr. Hawthorne?" A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Only on Saturdays. Rest of the week I am a perfect gentleman." "That will be the day," Martha muttered, but there was affection in her voice. "What do you need, Owen?" "I know you did not come here just to meet my niece. Actually, I am looking to hire some help. Got a string of horses to break and deliver to Fort Bliss in 2 weeks, and my ranch hand quit on me last week. Took off for the silver mines in Arizona. I need someone with sense who can help me manage the books and the business end of things while I focus on the horses. Thought maybe you knew someone in town looking for work." Martha frowned thoughtfully. "Most of the men around here are already spoken for. But I tell you what, Adelaide here is smart with numbers. Worked in her father's bank back in Boston. Maybe you two could work something out." Adelaide's head snapped toward her aunt. "Aunt Martha, I am here to help you. And you will in the mornings, but I do not need you here all day every day. This store practically runs itself most afternoons. Besides, Owen pays fair wages, and you could use the extra money if you are planning to stay out here any length of time." Owen looked between them, uncertainty crossing his features. "No offense, Miss Jennings, but a horse ranch is rough work. I am not sure it is suitable for a lady from back east." Something in his tone rankled Adelaide, a hint of condescension that reminded her of every man in Boston who had patted her hand and told her not to worry about complicated matters. "I can read, write, cipher, and balance accounts. Unless your horses require more than that, I believe I am qualified, Mr. Hawthorne." His eyebrows rose, and the uncertainty was replaced by something that might have been respect. "Well then, can you ride?" "I rode in Boston. A park pony is not the same as a working horse, Miss Jennings. Out here, you need to know how to handle an animal with spirit." "Then I suppose I will learn." Martha was trying not to smile. "Take her out to your ranch this afternoon, Owen. Show her what the work entails and let her decide for herself. Adelaide has got more steel in her spine than you might think." That afternoon, Adelaide changed into her most practical dress, a simple brown cotton with a divided skirt that scandalized the Boston matrons, but was far more functional for actual work. She borrowed a wide-brimmed hat from her aunt and met Owen outside the store where he waited with two horses, a sturdy roan gelding and a smaller paint mare. "The mare is gentle," he said, giving Adelaide a hand up into the saddle. "She will not give you any trouble." The paint shifted under her weight, and Adelaide concentrated on finding her seat, on feeling the movement of the animal beneath her. It was different from the sedate rides in Boston Common, more alive somehow. "What is her name?" "Rosie. She belonged to my mother before she passed." They rode north out of Columbus, following a dusty track that wound through scrubland dotted with mesquite and creosote bush. The sun beat down mercilessly, but the motion created a slight breeze, and Adelaide found herself relaxing into the rhythm of Rosie's gait. Owen rode beside her, quiet at first, then pointing out landmarks as they traveled. The dry wash where flash floods could appear in minutes during monsoon season. The rocky outcrop where rattlesnakes liked to sun themselves. The distant glimmer of the border fence, a series of barbed wire markers that were more symbolic than actual barrier. "How long have you been ranching?" Adelaide asked. "About 6 years. My father started the Triple H, but he died when I was 20. Left it to me and my younger sister. She married a soldier 2 years ago and moved to Fort Worth, so now it is just me. Got about 300 acres and 60 horses, give or take. Mostly I break and train them for the cavalry, but I also sell to ranchers and freight companies. It is good work, honest work, but it takes more than I can manage alone." "Why did your ranch hand leave?" Owen was quiet for a moment, his jaw tightening. "Said it was the lure of silver, but truth is, I think he just got tired of taking orders from me. I have got high standards, and I do not tolerate sloppy work or dishonesty. Some men do not appreciate that." They crested a low rise, and the ranch came into view. It was modest but well maintained. A low adobe house with a covered porch, a large barn, several corrals, and a windmill turning lazily in the breeze. Horses grazed in the paddocks, their coats gleaming in the sunlight. Adelaide felt something shift in her chest, an unexpected sense of possibility. Owen helped her down from the saddle, and she was acutely aware of his hands on her waist, the strength in his grip. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then Owen stepped back, clearing his throat. "Let me show you around." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of information. Owen showed her the barn where he stored feed and tack, the small office where he kept his ledgers and correspondence, the corrals where he worked the horses. His books were a mess, entries scrawled in cramped handwriting, receipts stuffed into drawers with no apparent organization. Adelaide's fingers itched to put it all in order. "I know it is bad," Owen admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Business was never my strong suit. I am good with horses, always have been, but the paperwork side of things just gets away from me." Adelaide picked up a ledger, flipping through pages of crossed-out numbers and margin notes. "This is not bad, it is a disaster. How do you even know what you are owed or what you owe others?" "I mostly keep it in my head." "And when you forget," he gave her a rueful smile. "Then I guess I lose money, which is why I need help." Adelaide set the ledger down and looked at him directly. "If I do this, I need your word that you will respect my work. I am not here to be decorative or to make coffee. I will organize your accounts, manage your correspondence, and help you run this business properly. In return, you will pay me fair wages and treat me as a partner in the enterprise, not a subordinary." Owen extended his hand. "You have got yourself a deal, Miss Jennings. Though I think if we are going to be partners, you should call me Owen." She shook his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm. "Adelaide, Adelaide," he repeated, and the way he said her name sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. She started the next day, dividing her time between the general store in the mornings and the ranch in the afternoons. Owen would pick her up after lunch and ride with her out to the Triple H, and those rides quickly became the part of her day she looked forward to most. They talked about everything and nothing, their conversations ranging from the practical details of horse breeding to their dreams and histories. Owen told her about growing up on the ranch, about his father's determination to build something lasting in the harsh frontier landscape. Adelaide told him about Boston, about feeling trapped in a life of social calls and embroidery and meaningless chatter. "Why did you really come out here?" Owen asked one afternoon as they rode. "I do not think it was just to help your aunt." Adelaide watched the horizon, considering her answer. "After my mother died, I felt like I was suffocating. Everyone in Boston had plans for me. This cousin wanted to introduce me to his business partner. That family friend thought I should marry her son. They all meant well, but none of them asked what I wanted, and the truth is, I did not know. I still do not. But I knew I needed to be somewhere different, somewhere I could figure it out without everyone watching and judging." "And have you figured it out?" "I am starting to think maybe that is not the point. Maybe it is not about having everything planned out. Maybe it is about being open to what comes." Owen smiled at her, and her heart did a small flip in her chest. Over the weeks, she had grown accustomed to his presence, to the way he moved through the world with quiet competence. He was gentle with the horses, patient when teaching them, firm but never cruel. She watched him work, admiring the line of his shoulders, the strength in his hands, the focus in his eyes. And sometimes she caught him watching her too, his gaze lingering just a moment longer than necessary. By the end of the first month, Adelaide had transformed Owen's office from chaos into order. She set up a proper filing system, reconciled his accounts going back 2 years, and discovered that he was owed nearly $300 in outstanding debts that he had forgotten to collect. She wrote polite but firm letters to the debtors, and within 2 weeks most of the money had come in. Owen stared at the cash in his strongbox with something like wonder. "You are a miracle worker," he said. "I had written that money off as lost. You were just disorganized." There is a difference between losing money and not keeping track of it. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I am glad you came to Columbus, Adelaide. I did not realize how much I needed help until you showed me what was possible." She busied herself with organizing papers, trying to hide the flush in her cheeks. "Well, someone had to save you from yourself." The horse delivery to Fort Bliss was scheduled for late August. Owen had contracted to provide 20 trained mounts for the cavalry, and he had been working the horses hard, getting them accustomed to saddles, bridles, gunfire, and unexpected noises. Adelaide helped where she could, mainly by keeping the schedule organized and making sure everything was ready for the journey. The fort was a 3-day ride east, and Owen planned to take 2 hired hands along to help manage the herd. The night before he was set to leave, Adelaide found herself feeling anxious. She had grown used to seeing Owen every day, to their conversations and the easy companionship that had developed between them. The idea of him being gone for a week made the ranch feel empty before he had even left. She was working late in the office, finishing up the final invoices when Owen appeared in the doorway. He had cleaned up for the trip, his hair freshly trimmed, his face shaved clean. In the lamplight he looked younger, almost vulnerable. "Burning midnight oil?" he asked. "I wanted to make sure everything was in order before you left. The invoices are ready, along with copies in case anything happens to the originals. I also wrote out instructions for the fort quartermaster about the terms of payment." Owen came to stand beside her desk, looking down at the neat stacks of papers. "You have thought of everything. That is what you pay me for, is it?" His voice was soft, questioning. He reached out and gently turned her face toward him. "Adelaide, I need to tell you something before I go." Her heart was pounding so hard she was certain he could hear it. "What is it?" "These past weeks, working with you, talking with you, I have come to care for you. More than I should, probably. More than is proper for a business arrangement. And I know you came out here to find yourself, not to get entangled with a rancher who smells like horses most of the time. But I needed you to know how I feel before I left. If something were to happen, if I did not come back, I would regret not telling you." Adelaide stood up, closing the small distance between them. "Owen, nothing is going to happen. You are delivering horses, not riding into battle. Things happen on the frontier. You never know." She reached up and touched his face, feeling the smoothness of his freshly shaved jaw. "Then I should tell you that I care for you too, more than I expected, more than I planned. When I am with you, I feel like myself in a way I never did in Boston. Like all the parts of me that I had to hide or minimize there are exactly what you value most." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, and she rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady thunder of his heartbeat. They stood like that for a long moment, neither speaking, just holding each other in the quiet office. "When I get back," Owen said into her hair, "I want to court you properly if you will have me." Adelaide pulled back just enough to look up at him. "I will have you." He kissed her then, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as she responded, her hands sliding up to his shoulders. The kiss tasted like promise and possibility, like all the tomorrows they might have together. Owen left at dawn the next morning, driving the string of 20 horses with 2 hired hands riding alongside. Adelaide watched from the ranch porch until they disappeared into the distance, a knot of worry in her chest that she tried to ignore. She kept busy over the next days, dividing her time between the store and the ranch, but the hours felt longer without Owen there to share them. On the 4th day, Adelaide was at the ranch updating the breeding records when she heard horses approaching fast. She looked up, expecting to see Owen returning early, but instead saw a single rider galloping hard toward the house. It was Miguel Santos, one of the hands Owen had taken with him. His horse was lathered with sweat and Miguel's face was creased with worry. Adelaide ran out to meet him. "Miguel, what happened? Where is Owen?" Miguel swung down from his saddle, breathing hard. "There was trouble at the fort, Miss Adelaide. Not with the delivery, that went fine. But on the way back, we got separated in a dust storm. When it cleared, Owen was gone. Me and Carson searched for hours, but we could not find him. We figured he would make his own way back, so we came on ahead to let you know." But that was yesterday afternoon, and if he was behind us, he should have been here by now. Adelaide felt ice flood her veins. Could he have gotten lost? Owen knows this country like the back of his hand. He would not get lost. Unless he was hurt or his horse threw him, or, Miguel paused, his expression darkening, or someone took him. Took him? Who would do that? There have been reports of bandits working the area between here and Fort Bliss. They usually go after freight wagons, but maybe they thought Owen had money from the horse sale. Or maybe it was just bad luck. Adelaide forced herself to think clearly despite the panic clawing at her throat. We need to organize a search party. Go into town and round up anyone who can ride and shoot. I am going to get supplies together. Miss Adelaide, you cannot think you are coming along. This could be dangerous. Owen is out there somewhere, possibly hurt or worse. I am not going to sit here doing needlework while others look for him. Now go, we are wasting time. Miguel hesitated, then nodded and swung back into his saddle. Adelaide ran into the house and started gathering supplies with shaking hands. Canteens, food, ammunition, blankets, a medical kit. She changed into her most practical clothes and strapped on the gun belt Owen had insisted she learn to use. The Derringer her aunt had given her was too small for serious trouble. Owen had taught her to shoot his Colt revolver, spending patient afternoons at the range until she could hit what she aimed at more often than not. By early afternoon, a group of 8 riders had assembled at the ranch. Miguel and Carson, 3 cowboys from neighboring spreads, a Mexican tracker named Benito who was known for his skill in reading signs, the town sheriff, a weathered man named Tom Crawford, and Adelaide. The sheriff had tried to convince her to stay behind, but she had stared him down until he relented. "We ride out to where you last saw him," Sheriff Crawford said to Miguel. "Then Benito will pick up the trail from there. Everyone stay alert. If this is bandits, they will not take kindly to being tracked." They rode east at a hard pace, retracing the route Owen would have taken back from Fort Bliss. The August sun was merciless, and sweat soaked through Adelaide's clothes within the first hour. But she kept up with the men, pushing Rosie to match their pace. They reached the area where the dust storm had separated the group as the sun was beginning its descent toward the western horizon. Benito dismounted and began walking in slow circles, reading the ground. After several minutes, he pointed to a set of tracks. 3 horses came through here yesterday. One was being ridden hard, the other 2 following. They head south toward the border. Could be nothing, Sheriff Crawford said. Could be travelers. Or could be Owen being pursued, Adelaide said. We have to follow them. They tracked south as the light faded, following the trail across increasingly rough terrain. Just as Adelaide was beginning to fear they would lose the tracks in the darkness, Benito held up a hand. In the distance, a faint flicker of firelight was visible among a cluster of rocks. The group dismounted and approached on foot, moving as quietly as possible across the rocky ground. As they drew closer, Adelaide could make out 3 figures around the campfire. 2 were clearly bandits, rough-looking men with guns on their hips. The third was Owen, his hands tied behind his back, a bloody gash across his forehead. Relief and fury warred in Adelaide's chest. Sheriff Crawford motioned for everyone to spread out and take positions in the rocks above the camp. Adelaide crouched between 2 boulders, her heart hammering, the revolver heavy in her hand. She had shot at targets, at bottles lined up on a fence, but the idea of shooting at a person made her stomach turn. "On my signal," Crawford whispered. "We want them alive if possible, but not at the cost of Owen's life." The sheriff cupped his hands around his mouth and called out, "You men by the fire, this is Sheriff Tom Crawford. You are surrounded. Release your prisoner and throw down your weapons." For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the bandits grabbed Owen, hauling him to his feet and pressing a gun to his head. "You come any closer and this one dies." Adelaide's vision tunneled, focusing entirely on Owen's face. Even from this distance, she could see he was hurt, swaying on his feet. The bandit holding him was positioned with his back to a rock face, using Owen as a shield. "Nobody has to die here," Crawford called. "Let him go and you can ride out. We just want him back." "We want the money he got from Fort Bliss," the bandit shouted back. "He gives us that, we let him go." "Already spent it," Owen slurred, his voice barely carrying. "Got nothing left." The bandit struck him across the face with the gun, and Owen's knees buckled. Adelaide's finger tightened on the trigger, but she could not get a clear shot without risking hitting Owen. "Last chance," Crawford called. "Release him now." The second bandit suddenly raised his rifle toward the rocks where the sheriff was hidden. Multiple gunshots rang out simultaneously. The man with the rifle went down, hit by at least 2 bullets. The one holding Owen startled, turning his gun toward the source of the shots. In that instant, Owen threw himself sideways, breaking the bandit's grip and rolling away. Adelaide did not think. She aimed and fired just as Owen had taught her. The shot went wide, but it was enough to make the bandit dive for cover instead of shooting at Owen. The rest of the posse opened fire, and within seconds it was over. One bandit was dead, the other wounded and surrendering. Adelaide ran down from the rocks, stumbling over loose stones in her haste. She reached Owen where he lay on his side, his hands still bound. "Owen! Owen, can you hear me?" He blinked up at her, confusion and recognition chasing across his face. "Adelaide, what are you doing here? Saving you, apparently." Her hands shook as she pulled out a knife and cut through the ropes binding his wrists. "Are you hurt badly?" "Head wound. Feels worse than it is, probably. They ambushed me during the storm, took my horse and my money." He struggled to sit up, wincing. "You should not be here. It is too dangerous." "Well, I am here, so you will just have to get used to it." She checked the gash on his forehead, relieved to see it had mostly stopped bleeding. "You need proper medical attention." Sheriff Crawford approached, holstering his gun. "Good shooting, Miss Jennings." "You kept him distracted long enough for us to end this." "I missed." "Sometimes missing is just as useful as hitting. You gave Hawthorne the opening he needed." The sheriff looked down at Owen. "You are a lucky man. Most folks do not get themselves kidnapped and rescued in the same day." They made camp there for the night, not willing to risk traveling in the darkness with an injured man. Adelaide stayed close to Owen, cleaning his wounds and making sure he did not have a concussion. He drifted in and out of sleep, and every time he woke, he seemed surprised to find her there beside him. "You came after me," he murmured at one point, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "Of course I did. What kind of partner would I be if I let bandits make off with you?" "A sensible one, probably." He squeezed her hand. "Adelaide, when those men had me, all I could think about was that I would not get to come back to you, that I had finally found something real, someone who made me want to be better, and I was going to lose it before we even had a chance." She leaned closer, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "You did not lose it. I am right here. I know. And I am not letting you go." They made it back to Columbus the next afternoon, taking the journey slowly for Owen's sake. The town doctor examined him and confirmed that while he had a concussion and various bruises, nothing was broken or permanently damaged. Martha fussed over both of them, insisting Adelaide take a few days off to recover from the ordeal. But Adelaide found herself back at the ranch the very next day. She told herself it was to check on Owen, to make sure he was following the doctor's orders to rest. But really, she just wanted to be near him. The fear of losing him had crystallized something in her heart, made her understand that what she felt was more than simple affection or attraction. She was falling in love with this man, with his quiet strength and his gentle hands and his determination to build something good in a harsh land. Owen was on the porch when she arrived, sitting in a rocking chair with a blanket despite the heat. He smiled when he saw her. "I knew you would not stay away. Someone has to make sure you do not do anything stupid while recovering. Stupid like getting kidnapped by bandits." Exactly like that. She sat in the chair beside him, and they rocked in companionable silence for a while, watching the horses in the paddock. Finally, Owen spoke. "Adelaide, I have been thinking. Almost dying makes a man evaluate his priorities. And I realize that I have been going about this all wrong." "Going about what wrong?" "Courting you. I said I wanted to do it properly when I got back from Fort Bliss, but what does properly even mean out here? There are no society rules, no proper calling hours or chaperones or any of that Boston nonsense. Out here, people find each other and they hold on tight because tomorrow is not guaranteed." Adelaide's heart was racing again. "What are you saying?" Owen turned to face her fully, his sage green eyes serious. "I am saying I love you, Adelaide Jennings. I love your sharp mind and your brave heart and the way you shoot revolvers and organize ledgers with equal determination. I love that you came out here looking for yourself and somehow found me instead. And I am saying that life is too short and too uncertain to waste time being cautious. Marry me. Be my wife, my partner in everything. Help me build this ranch into something that lasts." Adelaide felt tears prick her eyes. "Owen, I love you too, but I am scared. What if I am not cut out for this life? What if I fail you?" He reached over and took her hand, his grip strong and sure. "Then we will fail together and try again. That is what partners do. We will figure it out as we go, just like we have been doing. But I would rather fail with you beside me than succeed alone. So what do you say? Will you marry me?" She looked at him, at this man who had taught her to ride and shoot and keep books, who had shown her what it meant to work hard for something you believed in, who had made her feel more alive than she had ever felt in her carefully ordered Boston life. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." He pulled her into his arms, careful of his injuries, and kissed her with a tenderness that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both of them were grinning like fools. "When?" Adelaide asked. "Should we wait until you are fully recovered?" "I have spent 26 years waiting to find someone like you. I do not want to wait another minute longer than necessary. As soon as the circuit preacher comes through town. Next week if possible." Martha, when they told her, cried and laughed and immediately began planning. "It will have to be simple," she said. "But simple is often the most beautiful anyway. We will have the ceremony here at the store and then a celebration at the ranch. Everyone in Columbus will want to come." The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Adelaide had no trousseau, no wedding gown, no hope chest filled with linens. But the women of Columbus rallied around her. Maria Santos, Miguel's wife, brought her a beautiful white lace shawl that had belonged to her grandmother. Another rancher's wife altered one of her own dresses to fit Adelaide, a simple but elegant gown in ivory silk. Martha contributed her own wedding ring, since Owen's mother's ring had been sold years ago during a hard winter. Owen, for his part, threw himself into preparing the ranch house for Adelaide's permanent residence. He added shelves to the bedroom for her books, built a desk in the main room where she could work on the accounts, and even attempted to make curtains before admitting defeat and asking Maria for help. The result was a home that felt warm and welcoming, a place where Adelaide could see herself building a life. The wedding took place on a Tuesday afternoon in early September, in the general store with every available person in Columbus crammed inside. The circuit preacher, a jovial man named Reverend Potter, performed the ceremony with enthusiasm. Owen wore his best suit, looking both nervous and happy. Adelaide wore the borrowed dress and the lace shawl, her hair pinned up with wildflowers that Owen had picked himself that morning. When the Reverend asked if anyone objected to the union, the room stayed blessedly silent. When he pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in cheers. Owen kissed Adelaide thoroughly, and she kissed him back, not caring who was watching. The celebration at the ranch lasted well into the evening. Tables were set up in the yard, groaning with food that everyone had contributed. There was music, a local man with a fiddle and another with a guitar, and dancing under the stars. Adelaide danced with Owen, with her aunt, with various cowboys and townsfolk, until her feet ached. But it was the kind of good ache that came from joy, from being part of a community that had embraced her as one of their own. Late in the evening, Owen pulled her away from the crowd, leading her to the barn where it was quieter. "I wanted to give you something," he said. "Your wedding present." He led her to one of the stalls, and Adelaide gasped. Inside was the most beautiful horse she had ever seen, a young buckskin mare with intelligent eyes and a gentle disposition. "Owen, she is magnificent. Her name is Solana. It means sunlight in Spanish. I have been training her special for you, teaching her to be steady and responsive. She is yours to ride whenever you want, because I want you to feel free here, Adelaide, free to go where you want, to be who you are." Adelaide threw her arms around his neck. "How did I get so lucky to find you? I think I am the lucky one." He kissed her softly. "Come on, let me show you our home properly." They slipped away from the party, hand in hand, and entered the ranch house as husband and wife. Owen lit a lamp, casting warm light across the main room. Adelaide looked around, seeing all the small touches he had added for her, and felt her heart swell with love for this man who had seen her, truly seen her, from the very beginning. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, a discovery of each other in the privacy of their bedroom. Owen was patient and gentle, making sure Adelaide felt safe and cherished. Afterwards, they lay tangled together in the darkness, listening to the distant sounds of celebration still going on outside. "Are you happy?" Owen asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "Happier than I ever thought possible. Is that strange? I have only been in Columbus for a few months and my whole life has changed." "Not strange. Sometimes the best things happen when we stop planning and start living. You came out here looking for yourself and you found us instead. Found this life we are going to build together. What kind of life do you think it will be?" "Full," he said simply. "Full of work and challenges and probably a fair amount of trouble, knowing our luck, but also full of love and laughter and small victories. We will grow the ranch, raise horses, maybe raise children someday if we are blessed. We will fight and make up and figure out how to be partners in everything. And when things get hard, because they will get hard, we will face it together." Adelaide smiled in the darkness. "Together. I like the sound of that." The first year of their marriage was indeed full, just as Owen had predicted. They worked side by side to expand the ranch, adding another 40 acres and increasing the herd to 90 horses. Adelaide's organizational skills and Owen's expertise with horses proved to be a formidable combination. They began to develop a reputation throughout the territory for quality stock and reliable business dealings. There were challenges, of course. A late-season drought that forced them to drive the horses miles away to find adequate grazing. A dispute with a neighboring rancher over water rights that almost came to violence before cooler heads prevailed. A bout of illness that swept through Columbus, leaving half the town bedridden for weeks. But through it all, Adelaide and Owen faced each problem together, supporting each other when things got difficult. Adelaide discovered that she loved ranch life far more than she had ever loved her existence in Boston. She woke before dawn to cook breakfast, spent mornings at her aunt's store or working on the ranch books, and afternoons riding with Owen to check the herds or mend fences or do any of the 100 tasks that ranch life demanded. Her hands grew calloused, her face tanned despite the wide-brimmed hats she wore. She became proficient with a rope and could shoot well enough to take down a rattlesnake at 20 paces. But more than the work, she loved the partnership she and Owen had built. They made decisions together, pooling their different strengths. When Adelaide suggested they start breeding horses specifically for ranch work rather than just cavalry mounts, Owen listened, and they adjusted their breeding program accordingly. When Owen wanted to invest in a new stallion from California, Adelaide ran the numbers and figured out how to make it work financially. They also built a life beyond just work. Sunday afternoons became their time to ride out together, exploring the country around Columbus. Owen showed Adelaide hidden springs and ancient rock formations, taught her to read the land and the sky for signs of weather changes. They would pack a lunch and spend hours away from the ranch, talking about their dreams for the future, or simply enjoying the vast silence of the desert. In the evenings after dinner, they would sit on the porch and Owen would play the harmonica while Adelaide read aloud from whatever book had come in at the general store. Or they would just talk, sharing stories from their days, planning for tomorrow. These quiet moments were Adelaide's favorite, the simple intimacy of existing in the same space as someone who knew you completely. Their first Christmas together, Owen surprised Adelaide with a piano shipped all the way from Denver. It was wildly impractical for a frontier ranch house, but Adelaide cried when she saw it. She had learned to play as a child but had not touched a piano since leaving Boston. That winter, music filled the house, Mozart and Beethoven mixing with the wind outside. By the spring of their second year of marriage, Adelaide began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited until she was certain before telling Owen, nervous about how he would react. But when she finally found the courage to share the news, he lifted her off her feet and spun her around, laughing with pure joy. "We are having a baby," he kept repeating as if he could not quite believe it. "Adelaide, we are going to be parents." The pregnancy was not easy. The heat of the summer made Adelaide miserable, and morning sickness that should have passed after a few weeks lingered for months. But Owen was devoted, taking over more of her tasks, making sure she rested, bringing her cool water and whatever food she could stomach. Martha was delighted at the prospect of a great niece or nephew, already knitting tiny blankets and booties. The women of Columbus rallied around Adelaide, sharing advice and hand-me-down baby clothes and promises of help when the time came. As autumn approached and Adelaide grew larger, she found herself having moments of doubt. Late one night, unable to sleep because the baby would not stop kicking, she found Owen on the porch looking at the stars. "Could not sleep either?" he asked, pulling her down to sit beside him. "Your child seems to think my ribs make excellent target practice." She shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. "Owen, I need to tell you something. Anything. I am scared, terrified actually. What if I am not a good mother? What if I do not know what to do? My own mother was so distant after my father died. I do not have the best example to follow. What if I fail you, fail our child?" Owen pulled her close, his hand resting on her swollen belly where their baby moved beneath his palm. "Then we will fail together and try again. Remember. That is what I told you when I proposed, and it is still true. Neither of us knows what we are doing. Nobody does when they become parents for the first time, but we will figure it out together, just like we have figured out everything else. And Adelaide, you are going to be an amazing mother." I see how gentle you are with the foals, how patient you are when teaching someone something new. Our child will be lucky to have you. You really believe that? With all my heart. We are a team, you and me. We can handle anything as long as we face it together. Adelaide leaned into him, letting his certainty steady her fears. I love you, Owen Hawthorne. I love you too, Adelaide Hawthorne. Now let us get you back to bed before you catch a chill. Their son was born on a cold November morning in 1887, arriving just as the sun broke over the horizon. The birth was long and difficult, and there were moments when Adelaide thought she might not survive it. But Maria Santos, who had attended many births, was there to guide her through, and Owen refused to leave her side despite the convention that men should wait elsewhere. When the baby finally came, crying lustily, Owen cut the cord with shaking hands and placed their son on Adelaide's chest. She looked down at the tiny, red-faced creature, at his shock of dark hair and his perfect little fingers, and felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. He is perfect, she whispered. Absolutely perfect. They named him Thomas after Owen's father, with the middle name James after Adelaide's father. Little Thomas Hawthorne became the center of their world, a squalling, demanding, beautiful center that kept them both awake at night and grinning like idiots during the day. Owen proved to be a natural father, patient and playful. He would walk Thomas around the ranch for hours when the baby was fussy, pointing out horses and trees and birds, narrating everything in a low, soothing voice. Adelaide would watch them together and feel her heart expand even further, amazed that she had created this family, this life. The years that followed were full in the best possible way. Thomas grew from infant to toddler to a sturdy little boy who was happiest when he was outside helping his father with the horses. The ranch continued to prosper. They added more land, hired 2 permanent ranch hands, and built a proper bunkhouse for them. Adelaide's organizational skills meant they were never caught short of supplies, and Owen's reputation as a horse breeder grew throughout the territory. When Thomas was 3, Adelaide became pregnant again. This time she knew what to expect, and the pregnancy was easier. Their daughter, Grace, was born in the spring of 1891, a calm baby with Owen's sage green eyes and Adelaide's stubborn chin. Thomas was fascinated by his little sister, insisting on helping with everything from diaper changes to rocking her to sleep. Columbus was growing too. The railroad finally came through in 1891, bringing new opportunities and new people. The town added a proper school, a new church, and several new businesses. Martha's General Store expanded, and Adelaide found herself helping her aunt train new employees to keep up with the increased trade. But despite all the changes, some things remained constant. Adelaide and Owen's partnership remained as strong as ever. They still made time for Sunday rides, though now they brought the children along. Thomas on his own pony and baby Grace secured in a sling against Owen's chest. They still sat on the porch in the evenings, though now their conversation was often interrupted by children's questions or demands for attention. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Adelaide with a new addition to the house, a sunroom off the main living area with windows on 3 sides, and her piano moved into pride of place. "I wanted you to have a space that is just yours," he explained. "Somewhere you can play music or read or just think without stepping on toy horses or tripping over ranch accounts." Adelaide cried, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "Owen, this is too much. It is not nearly enough. You have made this house a home, made this ranch more successful than I ever dreamed possible, and given me 2 beautiful children. This is just a room. It is not just a room. It is proof that you see me, really see me, even after all these years." He pulled her close, and they swayed together in her new sunroom as if dancing to music only they could hear. "I will always see you, Adelaide. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Life on the frontier was never without its difficulties. When Thomas was 5, a wildfire swept through the territory, coming within a mile of the ranch before a change in wind direction pushed it away. They lost some grazing land but escaped the worst of it. When Grace was 2, a particularly harsh winter killed several horses and forced them to dig into their savings to make it through. There were accidents and illnesses, droughts and floods, the constant challenges of making a living in an unforgiving landscape. But through it all, Adelaide and Owen faced each challenge together, supporting each other, making decisions as partners. When things got difficult, when money was tight or the work seemed overwhelming, they would remember that first conversation on the ranch porch, when Adelaide had whispered her fear of failing him and Owen had promised they would fail together and try again. That promise became the foundation of their marriage, a reminder that they did not have to be perfect, just committed to facing whatever came as a team. As the 1890s progressed, the Wild West of their early days began to fade. Oklahoma became a territory, opening up more land to settlement. The Apache Wars were long over, the frontier pushing ever westward until there was almost no frontier left. Columbus transformed from a rough border town to a more established community with churches and schools and social organizations. Adelaide sometimes missed the rawness of those early days, the sense of building something from nothing, but she also appreciated the stability that came with civilization. Thomas attended the new school in town, learning to read and cipher from a proper teacher. Grace grew from a calm baby into a bright, curious little girl who followed her father everywhere, determined to learn everything about horses. In 1895, when Thomas was 8 and Grace was 4, Adelaide discovered she was pregnant again. She was 32 now, older than she had been with her other children, and the pregnancy was more exhausting. But when their second daughter, Ruth, was born in early 1896, Adelaide felt the same fierce love she had experienced with the other two. Ruth had Adelaide's dark hair and Owen's easy temperament, a happy baby who rarely cried. Their family complete, Adelaide and Owen settled into a rhythm that felt almost comfortable. The ranch was successful enough now that they could afford to hire more help, giving them more time to focus on their growing family. Thomas showed signs of inheriting his father's gift with horses, able to calm even the most skittish colt with patience and gentle words. Grace was more interested in the business side, often sitting with Adelaide as she worked on the accounts, asking questions about numbers and contracts. Ruth was still too young to show any particular inclination, content to toddle around the ranch yard collecting flowers and following the ranch dogs. On their 10th anniversary, Owen took Adelaide on a trip to San Francisco, their first time leaving Columbus since their honeymoon. Martha agreed to watch the children, and for 2 weeks, Adelaide and Owen were just themselves, not parents or ranchers, just a couple in love. They stayed in a fancy hotel, ate at restaurants, went to the theater, and walked along the waterfront holding hands like young lovers. "Do you ever regret it?" Owen asked one evening as they watched the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. "Leaving Boston, giving up the life you could have had back east," Adelaide looked at him in surprise. "Not for a single moment." "Owen, that life was killing me slowly, making me into someone small and scared. You gave me room to grow to become who I was meant to be. Why would you even ask that?" he shrugged, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Sometimes I wonder if I have given you enough. You could have married someone wealthy, someone who could have given you servants and fancy dresses and a big house in the city. Adelaide took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I do not want servants or fancy dresses or a big house in the city. I want exactly what I have. A partner who respects me, a home we built together, children we are raising to be strong and kind, and work that matters. You have given me everything I did not even know I needed. Do not ever doubt that." He kissed her then, long and deep, and Adelaide felt the same spark she had felt the first time he kissed her in the ranch office all those years ago. Some things, she realized, only got better with time. They returned to Columbus refreshed and ready to dive back into ranch life. Thomas had grown nearly an inch while they were gone, shooting up seemingly overnight. Grace had learned to braid her own hair and was inordinately proud of the slightly lopsided results. Ruth had learned 3 new words and demonstrated them all repeatedly. As the 1890s drew to a close, the world was changing faster than ever. Automobiles were beginning to appear in cities, though they had not yet made it to Columbus. Electricity was spreading, though the ranch still relied on oil lamps and candles. The Spanish-American War came and went, touching even their remote corner of the territory, as young men from Columbus went off to fight in Cuba. But through all the changes, the ranch remained a constant, a place where the rhythms of life were still dictated by the seasons and the needs of the animals. Adelaide found deep satisfaction in that continuity, in knowing that they were building something that would last beyond their own lives. When Thomas turned 15 in 1902, he began talking seriously about taking over the ranch someday. "I do not want to go to college back east," he told his parents over dinner one night. "I want to stay here, learn everything about the business, and eventually run it myself." Adelaide looked at Owen, seeing her own mixed emotions reflected in his face. Pride that their son wanted to continue what they had built, but also concern about limiting his options. "You are young yet," Adelaide said carefully. "You do not have to decide your whole future right now." "But I want to," Thomas insisted with the certainty of youth. "This ranch is in my blood. I cannot imagine doing anything else." "Then we will teach you everything we know," Owen said. "But you are also going to learn proper bookkeeping and business management from your mother, and you are going to continue your education. A good rancher needs more than just skill with horses. He needs to understand economics and politics and how to negotiate with difficult people." Thomas groaned but agreed, and Adelaide felt a swell of pride in both her son and her husband. They were raising children who knew the value of hard work, but also understood the importance of education and preparation. Grace, at 11, was less certain about her future. She loved the ranch but also dreamed of seeing more of the world. "Maybe I could be a teacher," she suggested one day while helping Adelaide with the baking, "or a bookkeeper for a big company, something where I could use my mind." "You can be anything you want," Adelaide assured her. "Your father and I will support you whatever you decide. Even if I want to leave Columbus, even then, though I would miss you terribly." Grace hugged her mother fiercely. "I would miss you too, but I want to see what is out there, like you did when you came out here from Boston." Adelaide smiled, recognizing herself in her adventurous daughter. "I know exactly what you mean." In 1905, New Mexico was approaching statehood, a change that would bring new opportunities and new challenges. The Hawthorne Ranch had grown to cover over 1,000 acres, running more than 200 horses, and employing 8 full-time ranch hands. They had become one of the most successful horse operations in the territory, known for quality stock and fair dealing. Owen, at 46, had a few more lines around his eyes and some silver threading through his hair, but he was still strong and vital, still the man Adelaide had fallen in love with 20 years earlier. Adelaide herself was 42, Her dark hair now streaked with white, she made no effort to hide. Her hands were permanently stained with ink from the ledgers, and her face showed the years of frontier sun, but she had never felt more confident or more content. Their children were growing into remarkable young people. Thomas, now 18, was everything they could have hoped for, a skilled horseman with a good head for business. Grace, at 14, was bright and curious, devouring every book that came through the general store. Ruth, 9 years old, was the family peacemaker, always ready with a hug or a joke to lighten the mood when tensions ran high. One evening in late spring, after the children had gone to bed, Adelaide and Owen sat on their porch as they had done countless times over the years. The air was soft and warm, carrying the scent of the flowering plants Adelaide had carefully cultivated in the ranch yard. "You remember that first day you came to the ranch?" Owen asked, reaching over to take Adelaide's hand. "When I showed you my disaster of an office and you looked at me like I was hopeless," Adelaide laughed. "I never thought you were hopeless. Disorganized, yes, but never hopeless. I was terrified you would take one look at the mess I had made and ride straight back to Boston. I was terrified of a lot of things back then. Terrified of failing, of not being good enough, of making the wrong choice." She squeezed his hand. "But then you told me we would fail together and try again, and somehow that made everything less scary. We have had our share of failures along the way, and our share of triumphs, but what matters most is that we faced all of it together, just like you promised." Adelaide turned to face him fully. "Owen Hawthorne, marrying you was the best decision I ever made. You gave me a life I did not know was possible, a partnership I did not know to dream of. Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for building this beautiful life with me." Owen pulled her close, and they sat together in the gathering dusk, watching the stars emerge one by one in the vast New Mexico sky. They had come so far from that day when a proper Boston lady and a rough around the edges cowboy had struck an unlikely business arrangement. They had built a ranch, raised a family, and created a legacy that would outlast them both. As the years continued to pass, the Hawthorne family remained at the heart of Columbus's community. Thomas did indeed take over the day-to-day operations of the ranch when he turned 21, though Owen and Adelaide remained active advisors and partners. Grace went away to normal school in Santa Fe, returning 2 years later as a certified teacher and taking a position at the Columbus School. Ruth grew into a talented musician, her piano playing filling the ranch house with beauty. In 1912, New Mexico finally achieved statehood, a momentous occasion celebrated throughout the territory. The Hawthornes hosted a grand party at the ranch, inviting everyone they knew to mark the transition from frontier to state. As Adelaide watched the crowd of friends and neighbors, 3 generations of family gathered together, she marveled at how much had changed since that hot July day in 1885 when she had stepped off the stagecoach into a new life. But some things had not changed. Owen still reached for her hand when they walked. They still sat on the porch in the evenings, though now they were often joined by grandchildren. They still faced every challenge and celebrated every triumph together, partners in the truest sense of the word. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children organized a celebration at the ranch. The whole town turned out, a testament to the respect and affection the Hawthornes had earned over the decades. There were speeches and toasts, music and dancing, mountains of food and barrels of lemonade. At the height of the celebration, Owen pulled Adelaide aside, leading her away from the crowd to the barn where he had given her Solana as a wedding present all those years ago. The barn was quiet, dim after the bright sunshine outside. "I wanted a moment alone with you," Owen said, Before we get completely overwhelmed by well-wishers, Adelaide smiled. What is on your mind? I have been thinking about that day I proposed when you asked me what if you failed me. Do you remember what I said? That we would fail together and try again. Exactly. And Adelaide, in 25 years of marriage, I do not think you have failed me once, but I have failed you more times than I can count. Times I was too stubborn or too proud or too focused on the work to give you the attention you deserved. Times I made decisions without consulting you or forgot important occasions or said the wrong thing. And every single time you were patient with me. You forgave me. We figured it out together and tried again. Adelaide reached up to touch his face, feeling the familiar lines and planes she knew as well as her own. That is what love is, Owen. Not perfection, but persistence. Not never making mistakes, but always choosing to work through them together. You have given me everything I ever wanted and so much I did not know to want. If that is failure, then I will take it gladly. He kissed her then, soft and sweet. A kiss that held 25 years of shared history, of joys and sorrows, of growing together rather than apart. When they finally broke apart, both of them had tears in their eyes. I love you, Adelaide Hawthorne, Owen said. More today than yesterday, but not as much as tomorrow. And I love you, today, tomorrow, and all the days after that. They returned to the party hand in hand, ready to celebrate with their family and friends, ready to face whatever the future held. Together, as they had always been, as they would always be, the years that followed their 25th anniversary were good ones. Thomas married a young woman from Las Cruces and brought her home to the ranch, and soon the house was filled with the sounds of a new generation. Grace married the owner of the general store, a widower with 2 young children, and proved to be an excellent stepmother while continuing to teach. Ruth's musical talent took her to Chicago for a time, where she studied at a conservatory, but she eventually returned to Columbus, unable to stay away from the land and the family she loved. Owen and Adelaide gradually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the ranch, trusting Thomas and his wife to handle the work they had once done. But they remained active, still riding out together on Sunday afternoons, still sitting on the porch in the evenings. The ranch continued to thrive under the new generation's leadership, adapting to the changing times while maintaining the core values Owen and Adelaide had established. In 1920, as the world recovered from the Great War and women won the right to vote nationwide, Adelaide celebrated her 57th birthday surrounded by children, grandchildren, and a growing number of great-grandchildren. She looked around at the family she and Owen had created, at the legacy they had built, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked, settling into the chair beside her on the porch. He was 61 now, his hair completely silver, his body showing the wear of decades of hard physical labor. But his eyes were still the same sage green she had fallen in love with, still full of warmth and humor and love. "I was thinking about that girl who stepped off the stagecoach 35 years ago," Adelaide said. "So scared and uncertain, trying so hard to be brave. I wish I could tell her that everything was going to be all right, better than all right. That she was going to find exactly what she needed right here in this dusty border town." Owen reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining automatically after so many years. "I think she figured it out just fine on her own. With a little help from a cowboy who was smart enough to recognize a good thing when he saw it. You were pretty disorganized when I met you. I still am. Good thing I married someone who could fix that." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the land they had worked together, the life they had built together. The ranch stretched out before them, green and prosperous, dotted with horses and buildings and the infrastructure of a successful operation. In the distance, they could hear the laughter of grandchildren playing, the sounds of family dinner being prepared. "Adelaide," Owen said softly, "if you could go back and do it all again, would you change anything?" She thought about it, really considered the question. The hardships and the heartaches, the moments of doubt and fear, the times when failure had seemed inevitable. But she also thought about the triumphs, the love, the partnership that had sustained them through everything. She thought about the family they had raised, the business they had built, the community they had helped shape. "Not a single thing," she said finally. "Every struggle, every challenge, every moment of uncertainty led us here. To this porch, to this family, to this life we built together. I would not trade any of it, because all of it made us who we are." Owen lifted her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "That is exactly what I was hoping you would say, because I would not change anything either. Marrying you was the smartest thing I ever did, Adelaide Jennings Hawthorne. You took a rough cowboy with more dreams than sense and helped him build something real, something lasting. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose beyond just surviving day to day. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Adelaide corrected. "That is how partnership works, remember? We fail together and try again. We succeed together and celebrate. We build together and dream together and grow old together." "Speaking of growing old," Owen said with a mischievous smile, "race you to the barn." Adelaide laughed, the sound carrying across the yard. "Owen Hawthorne, we are both too old for that nonsense. We are never too old for a little nonsense. Come on, for old time's sake." He stood and offered her his hand, and Adelaide took it, letting him pull her to her feet. They walked together down the porch steps, their pace leisurely now, no need to race. They had all the time in the world, all the time they needed. They had built a life that would outlast them, a legacy in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch that would carry the Hawthorne name long after they were gone. As they walked arm in arm across the yard they had crossed countless times over the decades, Adelaide thought about that first conversation on the ranch porch, when she had whispered her fear of failing him. Owen's response had become the cornerstone of their marriage, the promise that had sustained them through every challenge. "Then we will fail together and try again." They had failed sometimes, both of them, made mistakes, miscalculated, fallen short of their own expectations. But they had also succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. And through it all, through failure and success, through hardship and triumph, they had been together, partners in the truest, deepest sense of the word. That night, as they lay in bed in the room they had shared for 35 years, Adelaide turned to Owen in the darkness. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For keeping your promise. For never giving up on us, on me. For being the partner I needed, the partner I did not even know I was looking for." Owen pulled her close, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Thank you for trusting me enough to take the risk. For seeing what we could build together and having the courage to try. I love you, Adelaide. Today and always." "Today and always," she echoed, and as she drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the warmth of his embrace, she thought about the girl who had stepped off that stage coach so many years ago. That girl had been looking for herself, for a purpose, for a life that felt real and meaningful. She had found all of that and so much more. She had found a partner, a home, a family, a legacy. She had found love in its truest form, not the fairy tale romance of storybooks, but the deep, abiding partnership of two people who chose each other every single day. Who failed together and tried again. Who built something beautiful out of dust and dreams and determination. As the years continued to unfold, as children grew and grandchildren multiplied, as the ranch prospered and the family flourished, Adelaide and Owen remained at the center of it all. Not ruling, not controlling, but anchoring. Providing an example of what love could be when it was based on respect and partnership, when it was tested by time and refined by experience. They grew old together gracefully, their bodies slowing but their spirits remaining strong. They celebrated 50 years of marriage surrounded by 4 generations of family, a testament to the life they had built. And when the time came, many years later, they left behind not just a successful ranch or a large family, but a legacy of partnership and perseverance, of facing challenges together and never giving up on each other. The story that began with a young woman stepping off a stagecoach in Columbus, New Mexico, searching for something she could not name, ended with an old woman surrounded by the life she had built, the love she had found, and the family she had created. And through it all, through every moment of doubt and triumph, through every failure and success, she had been guided by a simple promise: then we will fail together and try again. It was a promise that had changed everything, a promise that had become a life, a promise that had proven, in the end, to be the foundation of a love story that would be told and retold by generations of Hawthornes who came after. A reminder that the best partnerships are not built on perfection, but on persistence, not on never falling, but on always getting back up together, not on avoiding failure, but on facing it hand in hand and trying again. And in the end, Adelaide and Owen Hawthorne did not just build a ranch or raise a family. They built a testament to what was possible when 2 people committed to facing life together, when they chose partnership over pride, when they promised to fail together and try again, and then kept that promise every single day for the rest of their lives.